Hi, it's Ash Beck. Welcome to BuzzPop. I'm here today with Matt Tyrnhauer to talk about Callie the Artographer. She coined the phrase. She was a brilliant California artist that painted with photography. Matt is a brilliant journalist and director, and he's behind the books that were recently published about Callie's work. Matt, thanks for joining us. I would love to hear your thoughts about Callie.
Hi, I'm Matt Tyrnhauer. It's great to be here talking about Callie, also known as Joan Archibald, who was a great photographer, however, an unknown photographer of mid-century. And all of her work was discovered posthumously, thousands upon thousands of photographs in a very unique style that were made into a book, of which I was one of the authors, called Callie, Artographer. I came upon the work of Callie when I received a phone call from Len Prince, who's a noted photographer. I'd worked with Len at Vanity Fair magazine, where I was a writer and editor. In fact, Len had even taken my portrait a few times as a contributor to the magazine. He sent me the newly discovered work of Joan Archibald, who, as I've said, was also known as Callie, K-A-L-I. And it was astonishing. Thousands of prints, some of them developed unprocessed rolls of film. But what was extraordinary about the work was to see it all as a collection that had been curated after her life. She only showed once, I believe, in a gallery. She was not collected in her lifetime. She now is collected. But to see an entire oeuvre curated and put together in a really remarkable way, which follows the format of the really impressive book that came out a few years ago called Callie Artographer, was very intriguing. And really the subject of her work and her style spoke to me. It's very much a Southern California aesthetic. It starts in the 60s in the early hippie era. It has that look about it. She's a woman of her time, an East Coaster from Long Island who made the migration west as a single mother of two, and made her way in the Malibu and Palm Springs of that era, which was, I think, the last gasp of that glamorous moment. And her work certainly reflects that. The early work has a kind of tie-dye color, sort of psychedelic, hippie look to it, redolent of the LA of that period. Made me think of Joan Didion in her 1960s work, her great essay about Malibu, her great essay about Haight-Ashbury and the kind of haywire California, the kind of aerospace, Hollywood, California colliding with the counterculture, and the work really is redolent of that. She did work with Polaroids, and then later in life, when she was a widow and kind of a shut-in, I understand, she continued to work, but in a very unusual way, shooting her environment through a series of closed-circuit TV monitors, security monitors in her house, and that comprises the last period of Callie's work. In the book, which I can hold up here, it's divided into three sections. The first is the original kind of look. This is not very colorful, but that's the original kind of psychedelic era. I can immediately flip to something like that, which is more emblematic of it. The second volume is Polaroids, which I'll hold up. You can see one beautifully embedded on the cover of the book, actually both sides. And then the third is perhaps my favorite volume, which is called Outer Space, which, sort of tongue-in-cheek, she was an experiencer of UFOs, she thought, and she photographed and journaled about them, as I said, through the security cameras of her house. She took Polaroids. You can't really see these up close, but as you'll see, she journaled about them and drew the images. And the The art director of the book, Sam Shahid, and company did a great job of putting vellum sheets with her journals over the photographs. And it's an incredibly dynamic book, which I was very honored to write the first volume of, which was an introduction and kind of like a monograph on Callie's career. And this is that. There she is in her Malibu period. Here are her cameras. She's really an extraordinary figure. There immediately was serious art world interest in her, a major show at the Columbus Museum of Art, followed by another major show at the Palm Springs Museum of Art, a major gallery exhibition at Staley Wise, and many more after that, and she's become very collectible. So you can really track her life through the found art, which was beautifully organized by Len Prince and Sam Shahid and all the other curators who worked on it once it was discovered and started to be organized. Early on, there's that Malibu hippie psychedelic feeling about it. It's literally tie-dyed. I mean, she innovated with inks, and she would even flood her pool with India ink and use it as a stop bath and color the photographs by hand that way. And she's a kind of like a assemblage artist, using the photographic process, but then enhancing it with color and other add-ons. Sometimes bugs would stick to it and she'd leave them in. So she was innovative, creative, a rule breaker, had her own style, but it was in keeping with that kind of psychedelic look of the period. She moved on into Polaroids, a different form. I mean, Polaroids were the hot thing then, and she did a bit of experimentation with that too. It's this one in the cover is somewhat cubist looking, and then I didn't open this book before, but you can get an idea here. There's sort of like a series of almost psychedelic Polaroids. There's a lot of self-portraiture here. It's a continuation of that early 70s work. She used, in the process, she used filters and masking on the lens and things like that. Again, pretty unusual. There was a gap, as far as I can tell, in her work that reemerged with that UFO black and white, or blue and white, really, because it's probably color film shot through black and white security monitors. It might have even been digital in some respects, maybe later. Here's that. So this is obviously almost becomes abstract. In the back, you can see there the kind of graphics that go with the security camera there, and it's really powerful actually when you're in front of it. It's a very interesting thing, and clearly this was someone who just couldn't stop working. I mean, she's at home, kind of shut in, not out in the world as much anymore, very different type of life, but she kept on practicing her art. I had a lot of help with the chronology from Len and Sam. They really had curated it. I was not the one that went through the file drawers and the suitcases, and that was done by really first-rate people who know their photography. And it came to me organized at first in bins, really electronic bins, and then the manuscript and the layout. And I could do an appraisal of the work based on that curation. So I'm not the curator of it, I'm the assessor of it, really. I'm the person that kind of looked at it and did a critical appraisal. I'm certainly not a photography critic. I've mostly written about art and architecture, and I've written a lot about California and reported a lot about California, where I'm from, specifically Southern California. We're right now sitting in the hills of California, and that's where I grew up, and that's where she lived. And there is that aesthetic and unique thing. You kind of have to be here to really know what it is. But if you've read, again, the work of Didion or Eve Babbitt's or Nathaniel West, another biographer of Los Angeles and Hollywood, and literary noir, literary sect, Raymond Chandler would be another good one. LA is often is its own subject. Hollywood makes it its subject. Cali made Los Angeles her subject, and that fascinated me, and I focused a lot on that in the essay I wrote. I don't know. She didn't really have a lot of legs up. I think she just dove in. It seems like she hung out in Malibu. In Malibu, you could go from house to house. If you've ever seen a Robert Altman movie from the period, there's a lot of kind of like walking on the beach and going up the stairs to someone's cocktail party on the deck. And that was what it was then. It was a much more kind of open, free place. The 70s was the era of the commune, and people made their decks in Malibu a kind of rolling party. In that part of Malibu too, where she was hanging out, which is called the Colony, and the work is like that. I mean, you can kind of see those characters who are her subjects. There's the kind of like the hippie girls and the hippie boys, and the braided hair, and the landscapes also have that. There's a bit of Palm Springs in there too, which was had a look and a feel. She did some modern architectural photography, and that's really in a way as compelling as the portraiture. I mean, she was at first self-trained. Then there's an institution in Palm Springs called College of the Desert, and it's still there. And she took photography classes at College of the Desert and honed her craft that way. Freewheeling defines early Cali. Shut in defines late Cali. It's very different. She had another marriage to a well-off lawyer, and they lived, in a nice, fancy place in the hills of Pacific Palisades, which the house actually burnt down in the recent fire. So that's another kind of Didion-esque coda to the story, which is Malibu and that part of the coast burning is a theme of that apocalyptic California canon of writing, and everything from White Heat. I'm thinking of the film noirs that end in a conflagration. White Heat and Day of the Locust, and all the Kiss Me Deadly, which takes place partly in Malibu, and the house blows up. There's a nuclear, like a dirty bomb explodes this house at the end of this great 50s film noir directed by Robert Aldrich. And it's this house right in the area where Cali hung out. There's a great LA-ologist named Mike Davis who wrote a book called City of Quartz. And Davis had a chapter in one of his other books, and it's called Sunshine and Noir. And that really, I think, encapsulates LA. It's a place of brightness, a place of darkness as well. And you can see that in Cali's work. It starts a bit brighter, and then it increasingly darkens. And her life kind of became smaller and smaller. I think what makes her work really extraordinary is the coherence, the fact that it was all found at one time, this giant trove of coherent, dogged work in photography with a real style unto itself, point of view. And the fact that it was found and put together after her life had ended, but curated so beautifully, and there was a lot to work with. It just comes across as this kind of like, boom, really powerful retrospective look, a kind of biography of an artist who was obscure in her lifetime, but I'm sure she would be delighted to know that she has found notoriety afterward, because it's based on her work. It's not based on anything else. It's not based on her personality or her wealth or her lack of wealth or the ups and downs of her career. It's just the work itself, which was kind of like pulled from nowhere, really, cupboards and valises in her home, and found its way into the hands of some good curation, and it's a wonderful posthumous trove of a work, a life of really wonderful hard work.
Headed west to live out all my dreams.
Thanks for joining us. This is Ashbeck signing off for BuzzPop. We've been talking with well-known journalist, director, and LA historian Matt Tyrnhauer about Callie the Artographer, a brilliant LA artist.